Well, you've probably come here with lots of questions, but let's start off with me asking you just one question and then you can ask yours.
Okay.
May I ask how old you are?
Yes, I'm 24.
24. Not that it matters, but just... So 24 means you've already had quite a few life experiences.
Mm-hmm.
You've been to school,
Mm-hmm.
you've fallen in love.
I think so.
Fallen out of love.
I think so.
And have had all kinds of experiences, perhaps in different places, meeting different people, different circumstances. The body probably has been well most of the time, but you've also experienced maybe one or two illnesses.
Yes.
Now, is there, in all those things that you have experienced so far, which is a continuously changing flux of things, is there any ingredient in there that was always the same, that didn't change? I'd just like to ask you to see if you can find any ingredient in all the things that you have experienced so far that's always been the same. We could start perhaps by asking, could it be the things around you? Obviously not, because the things around you change continuously. Could it be your thoughts? No, because the thoughts that go through your mind also change continuously. Could it be your feelings or your emotions? No, as you know, they also change all the time. So what is it, if anything, that hasn't changed, that doesn't change? Is there one ingredient in all your experiences, good or bad, up or down, that's always been there?
Well, I think I've been in here. I've been inside.
Now when you say I, what does that mean? What is that I? Now, because we've already seen it can't be your thoughts because they change all the time. Your feelings or emotions, they change all the time. Your sense experiences, things that you perceive around you, change all the time. So wherever we look, there's change. So when you say I and point to the I as that which doesn't change, it cannot be what happens to you. It cannot be the thoughts that go through your mind. It cannot be the emotions, the feelings that you experience. So what is the nature of that I? What does that word mean or point to?
It's listening. It's what hears, what's behind.
What's behind the thoughts? What's behind the sense perceptions? What's behind all the experiences and the feelings and so on? So the question that I'm asking does not really require an abstract answer, but I want you to actually feel or sense inside yourself that which doesn't change. No matter where you go, no matter what you do, or who you're with, or whether the body is well or unwell. When I ask, you said it's I, and I've asked, what's the nature of that I? And now you may be stuck for words. But you said one word, and that was listening. Now, when you're truly listening, there is a certain alert spaciousness. Because otherwise you're not truly listening. And so if that had to be expressed through a gesture, it could be, you could raise a finger gently and say, listen. So I say to you, listen. And you listen. there's a moment of spacious awareness, and there's no thought in it. So when you said listening, you were actually getting very close to the nature of who you truly are underneath all the circumstances of your life. And circumstances includes thoughts and emotions. If you don't find that, who or what you are underneath all the circumstances, no matter how many questions you ask and how many good answers you get, won't help you very much, and there will be no end to the questioning, because every answer generates further questions. So we're talking about becoming familiar with a different state of consciousness. Not that that has never been there. It's always been there because it's the I, but it's always been overlooked. Because the circumstances, things that happen to you and your thinking and your emotions, have such overwhelming pulling force that they always pull your attention in completely. And so attention is that which is there when you're truly listening. And in the moment of attention, there's no thinking, but there is an aware presence. So, the answer that you gave is absolutely right. Not everybody would have put it this way, but listening points to who you truly are, underneath all the things that continuously change. Now, I'd like you to, as we speak, this is not an intellectual discussion, because if this were intellectual, you should have gone to a professor of philosophy or some intellectual at a university.
I've been over there.
And ultimately, you get many answers, but all those answers will always make you end up with more questions.
Yeah.
Because they don't get you to the core of who you are. So let's start off with that. And what we are pointing to is a sense of I, of beingness, that is deeper than anything that happens in your life. It's always there, has always been there, right now. And that is closely related to the state of attentive listening, to get in touch with that, to sense it. Underneath it all, there is a timeless presence. Even in 50 years' time, in 60 years' time, when this body is getting old, and this body, the cells, it won't be the same body. The cells of the body will have been renewed many times. There won't be a single cell. Materially, there won't be a single thing that's left in 50 years, even though you may still be alive. There won't be a single thing that's left materially that's here now. Every cell will have been renewed. And so the body will have grown older, and yet something timeless deep within will still be exactly the same as it is now, untouched by time. I, before it becomes this or that, because the moment you say, I am American, I am this or that, I am a professional, or I am a jobless person, or I am a millionaire, or I'm a homeless person, that's all form, identifications with changing circumstances. And so people look for something there to provide permanency in their lives. They want to identify with something that they finally can say, there, that's it, I found it. What they really want to say is, I found myself finally. So they look for themselves through external possessions, through acquired knowledge, through an accumulation of experiences, or sexual encounters. Some people derive their sense of self from that. The more women you can conquer or seduce or have sex with, the more you feel, oh, I'm getting somewhere. Of course, after a few years, you realize it's not getting you anywhere. Not if you are, nothing will get you anywhere, which means to yourself, if you're looking for yourself in any experience. And that's the fallacy of most people. They look for themselves in changing circumstances. They look for themselves in their thought processes. They identify with their thoughts and opinions and their judgments and this and that. And it changes. Your opinions may change. You may be a Democrat now, and in 50 years' time, when you become a solid citizen, you may be become a Republican. You have a completely different set of opinions. It's just different set of opinions. And then you feel like the thoughts have changed, but the underlying I hasn't changed. So can you go through life being in touch with that? Being in touch with that in the different situations, different circumstances, different places, so that you're not completely lost in the things. I sometimes call it the thingness of life. One thing after another. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you haven't found yourself yet, if you don't know what that I is, then you're looking for the I in things. And things include your thinking, because every thought is also a formation. It has a certain form, a thought form. It comes and then it goes. Every emotion, it comes, it's an energy field inside you, it comes, has a certain lifespan, and then it subsides, and then another one comes. That's all the thingness of life. It's forms that come and go all the time. The only thing that doesn't come and go is I. That which underlies all that. And that's not an intellectual thing that I'm trying to convince you of, because that would not be helpful. The question is, at this moment, can I sense the presence that I am, that is prior to anything that happens to me or has ever happened or can ever happen? Can I sense that right now? Yes, you can, because if you couldn't, you wouldn't have said listening. Because listening, you already knew. It came from that deeper place of alert attention that in itself has no content. The content comes when things happen. But in itself, the I that you are, one could describe it as space. It's not lifeless, it's full of life. All of life comes out of that. But in itself, it is spacious. Buddha called it emptiness. And it's completely misunderstood by people, because the university professors look at the word emptiness and then say the Buddhist teachings are life-denying. The total opposite is true, because Jesus called the same space the fullness of life. Because at the same time it is life in its fullness. To be able to sense that, at first it's very subtle in the background, but as you become familiar with that dimension, it's always there somewhere, no matter what you do. Even when you meet a beautiful girl and you're talking to her, and you can, from there you can listen to yourself talking, and it's fine. You're not totally lost in your experiences. There's always a sense of aliveness and peace in the background, and that influences how you live your life. That sense, the I, the timeless I, because on the surface you have the time-bound I that grows older, it's identified with thinking and emotions, and things happen to it and so on. But underneath it is the timeless I. Now, the word I is probably the most frequently used word in the language. Whenever you listen to people, say, what's the word they use most frequently when you listen to a conversation? Probably you'll find it's the word I. Now, What they refer to is not the timeless, because they haven't found that. They refer to a superficial sense of I identification with things, with thinking, with emotions. I am angry. I am American. I am this. I am that. Identification with something. So that I is the greatest delusion, because there's no substance there, nothing permanent.
So if I'm not something, am I nothing?
Yes, I would pronounce that differently, though. I would say you are no thing. Now, there's a difference between no thing and nothing. Nothing is simply a denial, but no thing means there is a presence there, but it has no form. Nothing that you can grasp. It has no shape and no form and no name. The ancient Chinese call it the Tao, which cannot be named. There's a beautiful, it's 3,000 years old Chinese book of wisdom, the Tao Te Ching. I recommend it to everybody. And the first line in it is, the Tao that can be named or spoken of is not the true Tao. And so that there is the presence that you sense, a presence that has no form. In ancient language, Christian, Hebrew, there's the word spirit. But I don't use that word because it's been used for hundreds of years and misunderstood. So if I used spirit, people would immediately have some image of what it is, some form, or call it the Holy Spirit, and there's hundreds of years of misconceptions of what the spirit is, so we forget about the word spirit. But in its original true meaning, that's what spirit points to. The essence of who you are is formless. Now, we could use the word consciousness as the essence of who you are. And you can sense it, but you can never grasp it. And you cannot really know it. You can only know something that is not you, an object. Anything that becomes an object of consciousness. I look at this plant, and I know it by looking at it and by having a thought for a name for it. I say, I know this plant. This plant is an object that arises in consciousness. And I look at you. I see a shape and a form. And obviously, what I see, nobody knows whether what you see out there is actually there, because the image that you have in your mind of your surrounding environment is, there's an optical, the eye are like a camera lens. They send a picture to into the brain, that the picture is translated into nerve impulses and chemicals that reach the brain, and the brain decodes what I see and then reassembles a picture, and then suddenly I see you. Nobody knows what's actually out there. But let's just leave it. Here we have, looking at you, this is an object that arises in consciousness, in the space that I am. Then I look away, and another object arises in the space that I am. Or I listen to something that arises in the space that I am. A thought comes that arises in the space that I am. The presence that I am. But the presence itself, you can't know it in the way that you know a plant, or you know a person, or you know a sound, or you know a thought. Because it would have to reflect back on itself. You cannot make it into an object. So you cannot make yourself into an object of knowledge. You can only be that presence, but you can't know it because you would externalize it. And this is the mistake that humans have made over thousands of years. They made themselves into an object. And they talk about me and my story. I'm sure you have one.
Yeah.
The story of me. And so when you make yourself into an object, you live with yourself. Some people love themselves one day and they hate themselves the next day. And the following day they're not quite sure. And then you have and then you have feeling guilt. People have relationships with an image that they have in their mind of themselves, me. People talk to themselves in their mind. Well, that wasn't very good. You didn't do a good thing. You shouldn't have done that. Who is talking to whom? There's a voice in the head that talks to yourself. The mind has split itself in two and is talking to itself. And out of that continuous talking comes the story of me and identification with that. And the questions that you are going to ask probably have a lot to do with the story of me, to find out more about it, about my life. Because after all, that's what everybody is most interested in. You are here because you are the main character in the story of yourself. And the main character in that story has quite a few things that he feels puzzled about and doesn't understand and wants questions. And the story, in some ways it's worked and in other ways it hasn't worked. And so the character in the story has come here and wants to know how to make the story work better. Isn't that so?
Yes.
Now, whatever answers anybody can give you of how to make the story work better, there are things you can make the story work better, but all that doesn't really help unless you get to the bottom behind the story, the I behind the story. Then, if you are in touch with that throughout your life, the story will unfold with much greater ease because there is a deeper dimension that is there. But if there's only the story, nothing will ever satisfy the main character in that story, you. If the main character in that story, you, has never known the deeper I, the timeless presence that is the consciousness that you are, the attentive, spacious